Hello, what is an atom? What do playing cards have to do with atoms? Watch this episode of Hands of Science and find out. So the ancient Greek Democritus, as well as other ancient peoples, thought up atomic theory thousands of years ago. What's that, you say, atomic theory? Well, basically their idea was that there was the void and then there was stuff. Stuff is matter and void is space. They thought that there were little bits of stuff floating around, and as they stuck together, they formed macroscopic things that we could see and perceive, and that the way they stuck together is what created the properties of the particular substance, whether it was hard or soft, wet, hot, cold, flammable, whatever it was, the way the stuff combined made the matter have its properties. So think about it like this. You have a deck of playing cards. You can split that in half. It's still a deck of playing cards. And then, half again. It's still a deck of playing cards. And you can keep going down until you have a really small deck of playing cards. But you keep going. Well, guess what? You get to the point where there's one playing card. I can't split this in any way that it still has any sort of fundamental properties of cards. I could rip it in half. I could burn it. I could do a lot of things to it, but it would change its fundamental nature. That's what Greeks thought happened to all substances. Now, of course, we know that a card is not really anything fundamental. A card itself has lots of smaller components. Cellulose, glue, water, dye, ink, lots of different things that themselves are then made out of other smaller particles. So splitting a deck of cards in half doesn't get you anything fundamental. However, if you take my nice little brick of 99.9% pure copper, it's 1 pound of copper, if I could have something that would split this in half and continue to cleave it in half and in half and in half again, eventually you would get something fundamental. You would get a single atom of copper. Now, what does that mean, an atom of copper? Well, copper is a big and complex element, so I'm not going to draw that, but let's imagine instead of copper you have helium. Helium contains a nucleus, which has a proton, a neutron, and a second neutron. And then orbiting that is an electron. Whee! Orbiting. This has a particular set of properties that are dictated by the exact configuration of the components of it. If you had a different number of protons, well, guess what? It wouldn't be helium anymore. It would have a completely different set of properties. That's really what determines one element from another. The way that the elements react with each other is these external electrons. In some cases, they're attracted to each other. In some cases, they're repelled from each other. In other cases, they don't make any reaction, which is actually the case of helium, which doesn't really react with any other substances. The way that those substances interact and come together, you have an atom, and the reason why it's an atom, if you were to change this, if you were to split this, guess what? It's no longer helium. You can split this. You could split this into hydrogen, which has a single proton and a single electron, and that's possible to do. However, it no longer has any of the same properties of helium other than being gaseous. It's now highly flammable. It's it's lighter and it's highly flammable. It reacts rapidly with many other elements. Helium reacts with almost nothing. So the atom is the smallest fundamental bit of stuff that still has the same properties of the stuff that you're looking at. Now, you might say, well, that's not really fundamental because there are protons, there are neutrons, there are electrons. Well, and that's true. And in a future video, we will discuss if they are, in fact, the only things there are, or if there are smaller particles within them. However, that's more than we can do today, and this episode focused on the atom, the conception of it, and a little bit of the science behind it. That's it for today's episode. Now, stay tuned for the riddle of the day. Okay, in honor of the upcoming holiday season, here is today's riddle. You get no further clues other than the holiday season. Post below if you can figure out the riddle. Thanks for watching today's episode of Hand of Science. If you liked it, please like below, subscribe above, and check out some of our other videos over there. Until next time, keep learning.